Tatsuya Suo, Makoto Yuki, Kotone Shiomi, Yu Narukami, Ren Amamiya. All of these protagonists have names, right? Later derivative works often decide these, quote, canon names, end quote, whether movies, shows, or even a stage play. ATLUS makes a conscious decision in giving these characters names, and here we will be discussing the practice and its broader implications with the audience of the games in mind. For an in-depth look into how these protagonists got their names, I recommend Bubble Tea's video, SMT and Persona Canon Name Origins. For this video, I will discuss three main topics: the debate surrounding the canon names, the impact of naming a character has on people's perceptions, and finally, does this matter? Alright, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The names of these characters are often a point of contention for the fanbase. Much discussion leverages which one sounds cooler or fits the characteristics of the character more. The latter reason we will discuss at length in the next section. Here, I wanted to grapple with the current state of the canon names, as to whether or not people wish to follow ATLUS's names. There is much discussion surrounding the male Persona 3 protagonist, whether Makoto Yuki or Minato Arisato. And let's be real, nobody calls him Sakuya Shiomi. Between Makoto and Minato, just on passing observation, people tend to gravitate towards them equally, favor in the direction of Makoto by newer fans of the series. The arguments surrounding the name of the female Persona 3 protagonist are a bit harder to grasp because there are many different names: Minako, which is fan-given, Hamuko, and Kotone. While some may have their preference for other names, Kotone seems to have been chosen by the fanbase. An informal statistic reveals that Kotone appears far more frequently in the FemC Reloaded project Discord, coming up 6,293 times, compared to Minako at 154 times and Hamuko sitting at 121. Obviously, this statistic is deeply flawed and it isn't a proper survey, but it shows the dominance of the name overall. Compared to Persona 3, the Persona 4 protagonist does not oversee any notable discourse between Yu Narukami and Soji Seta today. And I know there was a debate when the names first released, however, that debate doesn't seem to be going on today. This is perhaps because of the smaller difference in between the times of releases between the manga and anime, only being around 2 years with Persona 3 being 6. Perhaps the most contentious debate, the Persona 5 protagonist is either Team Ren or Team Akira. While both are tethered to the codename Joker, many, myself included, conflict with ATLUS. I prefer the name Akira over Ren, despite me choosing the ATLUS-approved canon name for the rest of the protagonists. Here, I want to bring up the brilliant survey done by Mausileof and Nebula Leaf regarding name preferences among the fanbase. I want to repeat their disclaimer, it's not a concrete science survey, and here it is on screen, just so you can read it. Out of a sample of 1,217 responses, 12.04% report being harassed because of the names that they used in their post. While we won't be getting into the details of such harassment, it does get pretty dark. I will be using this survey later as well, so stay tuned. If you like videos like these and would like to see more in the future, consider subscribing. It goes a long way in terms of supporting the channel. With that out of the way, let's continue. Names are an important aspect of turning a slate into a character. As mentioned in one of our previous videos, how Yu Narukami went from game to anime, the characterizations of protagonists occurs within their respective shows. These silent protagonists are transitioned into full-formed characters, which means that they have to have a name. While only a small part of the broader aim of creating a character, naming helps define who these characters are before we meet them. Firstly, I want to bring up the Boba Kiki effect in understanding how we perceive these names. For those unfamiliar, the Boba and Kiki effect is the subconscious association of a word to a shape, Kiki being seen as a spiky, angular shape, compared to Boba, a softer, rounder shape. This subconscious association leads us to perceive names in a particular manner, with certain attributes. For instance, for me at least, a name like Akira Kurusu evokes a sharper, more rebellious attitude. Additionally, the amount of syllables and the sounds of the characters used contribute to how we subconsciously perceive these names. Next, it is important to mention the personality traits that we associate with each name. The characterization of these protagonists in their respective sources between the manga and anime are not stable. When these characters are named in their derivative works, these names often pick up specific personality traits native to their origin. This is evident by the Persona 3 protagonist. In the manga, Minato Erisato is seen to be very lazy, sometimes funny, and a big eater. In the movies, Makoto Yuki is a much more apathetic character. It's clear in the first movie because he cared little if he died. This holds true for the Persona 4 protagonist as well. In the manga, Soji Seta is a much more serious, lonely character, without much of a sense of humor. In the anime, Yu Narukami is depicted as far more outgoing after his awakening. With the release of the anime, people began seeing him as charming, funny, and caring. These characters are clearly not the same people. To further expound upon this point, I want to bring up the survey once more between Akira and Ren. 24% of the respondents believe that the two names have different personalities. Evidently, this is a subconscious decision, and the number represents the people conscious of their preference. In the optional question, Akira is seen as much more cool, confident, cocky, charismatic, and snarky, while Ren is seen as more dorky, softer, calmer, and more timid. These two characterizations are night and day of someone who is supposed to be the same character, Joker. Ultimately, the name you choose is the first stepping stone of how you want your character to act during the game. Every time I open up a JRPG like Persona, I name my protagonist after their canon name. I do so consciously, knowing that I prefer these names because of how they sound and the character traits I associate with them. But ultimately, what you choose to call the protagonist is up to you. It's not ATLUS's decision, and it's definitely not mine. It's the player's choice. Akira or Ren, Minato or Makoto, Kotone or Hamuko, and Narukami or Seta. It could even be Sheldon Cooper. It is your mark on the game, the story that ATLUS wishes you to connect with. Names signify a lot to us, so in this first step, I ask you to act mindfully. What you choose is as reflective as the choices you make throughout the game on your personality. Like I said earlier, if you like videos like these and would like to see more in the future, consider subscribing. Alright, see ya.